Receives an anonymous email with no subject line. Just one sentence. Check this line in the contract clause 47B. The email came from a burner account. The woman who sent it, Sarah Quinn, a former senior accountant, had been fired quietly months ago. The clause seems minor, but it isn't. It's a fuse, and if Jason pulls it, everything the company built will explode. 8:12 a.m. Ascendia Capital HQ, executive floor. Jason Whitaker sipped his espresso and glanced at his inbox, already stacked with merger-related updates and status reports. The final stages of the Helix Dynamics acquisition were underway, the biggest deal in Ascendia's history. He was calm-focused until he saw the email. From unknown@protonmail.com, subject, check this line in the contract clause 47B. No signature, no context. 8:17 a.m., Jason's private office. Jason leaned back in his chair, scrolling through the latest draft of the merger contract on his tablet. Clause 47B didn't immediately appear. He searched for it manually. Nothing. He opened a previous version a draft legal had sent him 3 months earlier. There it was. Clause 47B. Post-merger operational authority exception. In the event of internal governance dispute, decision-making authority shall default to entity named in Appendix H, Section 3. Jason blinked. He flipped to Appendix H, Section 3, redacted. That was odd. 8:31 a.m., Legal Department internal messaging. Jason messaged Elise Hartman, the company's general counsel. Elise, why is Appendix H, Section 3 redacted in the latest Helix draft? Clause 47B references it. Curious who that entity is. She replied within minutes. It's legal housekeeping. Placeholder language will be removed in the final version, already cleared by compliance. Jason didn't buy it. 9:12 a.m., archive room restricted access. Jason walked into the records room on 42. He bypassed the junior associate with a wave of his ID. Inside, he pulled up a preliminary draft of the original merger document, scanned, watermarked, untouched by legal edits. He searched for Clause 47B, same language, but this time, Appendix H, Section 3 wasn't redacted. It listed a company, Bright Reach Holdings LLC, registered Delaware primary contact. Redacted authority trigger automatic upon board dispute or dissolution. Jason's brow furrowed. He'd never heard of Bright Reach. Why would the board ever default control to a dormant shell company? 10:22 a.m., executive huddle. He brought it up quietly during the Helix morning briefing. Anyone know why Clause 47B routes control to Bright Reach Holdings if something goes wrong? Silence. Then Elise stepped in. It's inactive. Just a placeholder. No risk. Let's stay focused on finalizing the rollout timeline. Jason said nothing, but he took note of how fast she answered. Too fast. 12:17 p.m., lunch with CFO Greg Bowen. Jason sat with Greg Bowen, Ascendia's longtime CFO and one of the few people he trusted. He showed him the clause and the email. Greg frowned. Bright Reach Holdings, never heard of it. But if it's in Appendix H and not flagged, someone wanted it buried. Jason leaned in. You think it's an error? Greg shook his head. I think someone just hoped you wouldn't read that far. 1:03 p.m. The email header. Jason forwarded the email to Miles Cheng, a cybersecurity contact from his early finance days. Miles dug into the metadata. This message came through 2 bounce servers, one in Switzerland, one in a laundromat in Chicago. But the original IP was residential. Small town, Illinois. Jason paused. Can you get a name? Miles hesitated. It wasn't scrubbed well. Looks like it was sent from a Proton Mail account created by Sarah Quinn. Jason froze. Sarah Quinn was a senior accountant at Ascendia until she was fired 6 months ago. 1:47 p.m. HR file search. Jason asked for Sarah's file. It had been flagged as closed due to conduct violation, but the actual reason was missing. No exit interview, no final performance report. Just a single note removed from systems. Termination approved by GC. GC, General Counsel, Elise Hartman. 2:22 p.m. Jason's realization. He sat back. The anonymous email, the redacted clause, a dormant company listed as fallback authority, a whistleblower accountant, and a general counsel rushing him past it. It wasn't random. It was intentional. Clause 47B wasn't a mistake. It was a trap, and someone fired the only person who saw it. At first glance, it was boilerplate, legal fluff, one clause in a 300-page contract. But Clause 47B wasn't language, it was leverage, and someone buried it so deep only a fired accountant ever noticed. 7:32 a.m. Ascendia Capital, Legal Review Room. Private Jason Whitaker sat alone with a printed copy of the preliminary Helix Dynamics merger agreement. No red lines, no version control. Just the raw contract from 3 months ago before Elise's legal team sanitized it. He flipped to Clause 47B. In the event of unresolved post-merger governance disputes, voting control and executive decision authority will be transferred to the holding entity listed in Appendix H, Section 3. He ran his finger down to the original Appendix H listing Bright Reach Holdings LLC Delaware registered. Inactive public listing, legal representative internal only, trigger condition board deadlock executive conflict or dissolution vote. Jason muttered aloud, "That's not a failsafe. That's a takeover switch." 8:12 a.m. CFO Greg Bowen's office. Jason showed the documents to Greg Bowen again. Greg leaned over the contract, frowning. This language wouldn't raise alarms unless you knew where to look. Jason nodded. Sarah Quinn knew. Greg asked the obvious question. Why would anyone write a clause that hands post-merger control to an off-books entity? Jason's reply was sharp, because they planned to create the deadlock themselves. 9:03 a.m. Elise Hartman calls. Jason's phone buzzed. Elise Hartman, General Counsel. Jason just heard from Helix's side. They're asking if we can expedite signatures on the final governance appendix today. Is that a problem, Jason? Actually, I was just reviewing Clause 47B again. Still a little gray for me. Her voice stiffened. It's legal scaffolding, Jason. It doesn't do anything unless something catastrophic happens, and we both know that's not going to happen. Let's stay on schedule. He said nothing, just listened. Her tone was too confident, like she wasn't nervous, because she thought he was. 9:45 a.m. Jason reviews internal draft history. He accessed Ascendia's secure contract version control logs. A buried commit log showed that Clause 47B was inserted by Legal Not Helix. It appeared during version 9.1.3 pushed by Elise's legal assistant. The next version redacted Appendix H and marked it as non-material. Sarah Quinn's user ID had made several comments flagging the clause. 3 days later, her access was revoked. 10:17 a.m. Internal audit ping. Jason contacted internal audit and requested metadata on Bright Reach Holdings. The reply came back quick. No record of Ascendia financial ownership or legal affiliation with Bright Reach Holdings LLC. Jason frowned, then asked, "Can you confirm whether any officer of Ascendia sits on Bright Reach's registration documents?" They replied, "We'll need 2 hours." Jason gave them one. 11:08 a.m. Private email from Sarah's second contact. Another email arrived. Same Proton mail address. Subject, "They won't stop it. You have to." Body, "You found it. Elise buried it, but your CEO signed off on the redaction. They plan to use the clause once Helix's leadership is legally weakened by integration delay. Don't trust what's on paper. The real plan isn't documented." Jason stared at the screen. The real plan isn't documented. 11:45 a.m. Jason pulls out of the review call. He was supposed to join the 12:00 p.m. governance framework review with Helix leadership. Instead, he sent a short message to the integration team requesting 24-hour delay on contract finalization. Technical issues in clause hierarchy. He knew Elise would push back. He didn't care. 12:03 p.m. Greg gets a text. Jason texted his CFO. If I disappear from the system this week, clause 47B becomes real, and this company is no longer ours. Greg replied, "You've got 48 hours. After that, they'll make it look like you signed it yourself." She was quiet, precise, invisible, and then she vanished. No exit interview, no record, no noise. But now her anonymous email had shaken the foundation of a billion-dollar deal. So Jason Whitaker needed to ask the question no one else did. Who is Sarah Quinn? 8:10 a.m. Ascendia Capital. HR Archives restricted access. Jason swiped his executive badge at the lower-level HR archive room. He requested the employee file for Sarah Quinn, former senior financial analyst. The receptionist glanced nervously. "Her record was sealed, sir." "Jason, then unseal it." 5 minutes later, a thin manila folder slid across the desk. Inside, "Resume NYU Accounting Honors Graduate. Hire date. 5 years ago. No performance reviews on file. Final HR status terminated. Internal violation code. 6B. Approval signature. E. Hartman." Jason frowned. No notes, no incident report, no exit memo. Nothing else was submitted, the clerk said. Jason's gut twisted. 9:02 a.m. Greg joins the puzzle. Jason shared the folder with Greg Bowen. Greg scanned it quickly. Code 6B. That's usually for systems abuse or internal leak suspicion. But there's no supporting documentation, Jason said. No IT logs, no infractions, just gone. Greg leaned back. Or someone didn't want to put in writing what really happened. 9:40 a.m. Jason tracks the IP. Jason pinged his contact Miles Chung again. "Can you give me a street-level location for the IP that sent the email Miles, Northwest Chicago suburb? Name on the Wi-Fi lease, Quinn S. Unit 302, Benton Court Apartments." Jason paused. She wasn't hiding. She just wasn't supposed to be found. 11:30 a.m. Benton Court Apartments, outside Unit 302. Jason arrived with nothing but a phone and a printed copy of the Clause 47B page. The building was modest, quiet. He knocked on the door. No answer. Knocked again. The door opened an inch. A woman peeked out. Sarah Quinn, mid-30s, sharp eyes, low ponytail, worn hoodie, no makeup, calm but guarded. "You shouldn't be here," she said. 11:34 a.m. The conversation. They sat at her kitchen table. Sparse, clean. One laptop, no photos. Jason placed the contract page on the table. "Why send this to me?" Sarah stared at it. "Because I flagged that clause 8 months ago, and 3 days later I was locked out of the system. No notice, no reason. Just a call saying I was done." Jason asked, "What did you find?" Sarah opened a drawer, pulled out a black flash drive. Everything they didn't want in the audit trail. Board memos, side channel approvals, shell entity movements. Elise didn't redact that clause by accident. 12:10 p.m. The real story. Sarah explained she was running a quarterly compliance sweep when she noticed a discrepancy. A $4.2 million transfer routed through a dormant firm, Brightreach Holdings, with no reconciliation entry. She dug deeper, found a draft governance memo naming Brightreach as a strategic continuity asset. Then she found Clause 47B planted 2 weeks after that transfer. "I reported it to my director," she said. "Next morning my login was dead, HR wouldn't meet with me. My emails were wiped. 12:45 p.m. The warning. Jason stood to leave. Sarah stopped him. They'll come after you. They don't care about the contract anymore. They care about control. Jason pocketed the drive. If this is real, I'll protect you. Sarah gave a small, sad smile. No offense, Mr. Whitaker, but they said the same thing when I got hired. 1:03 p.m. 1 hour later, Jason returned to Ascendia HQ. An alert pinged on his phone. Unauthorized entry reported, Unit 302, Benton Court Apartments. He called Sarah's number. No answer. They told her it was just a check-in. One last call before she left the company. But Sarah Quinn heard something she wasn't meant to hear, and by the time she hung up, her career was over, and her silence was the goal. 6:28 a.m., 1 week before her termination, Ascendia Internal Systems. Sarah Quinn had just wrapped a quarterly audit when she noticed something strange. A wire transfer $4.2 million moved from an Ascendia sub-account into a third-party LLC Brightreach Holdings. She pulled up the recipient file. Nothing matched standard payment codes. It was categorized as interim strategic flow. That wasn't a thing. She flagged it and scheduled a review meeting with her director. 7:03 a.m. The director's office. Her director, Rami Voss, barely looked up when she explained the concern. We've got hundreds of compliance transfers, Sarah. You're probably overreading. This one links to a holding company with no operational record, and it connects to a clause in the Helix draft no one reviewed. Rami hesitated, then nodded curtly. I'll escalate. Sarah walked out unconvinced. 9:50 a.m., the calendar invite. 30 minutes later, she received a private meeting link, exit process, final Q&A, legal compliance audit follow-up. No calendar context, no agenda, just a private call with Elise Hartman, General Counsel. Sarah's chest tightened. Final Q&A. She hadn't submitted a resignation. She wasn't on any performance warning. Still, she clicked accept. 10:04 a.m., the video call. The screen loaded. Elise Hartman appeared, perfect hair calm tone. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for jumping on. Just wanted to clarify a few things about your recent system audit findings. Sarah nodded, wary. Elise's words were smooth. You were reviewing old versions of the Helix agreement, correct? Yes. And you accessed draft logs related to Board Appendix H. Sarah froze. Those weren't under legal lock. Right, but they are now. Which is why we'll need to log that access and close it out. Then Elise added, just to be clear, you didn't download or copy any materials outside of your audit scope. Correct? Sarah lied. No, of course not. 10:07 a.m., the voice in the background. As Elise turned to pull up a file, Sarah heard a muffled voice in the background. If she says yes, pull her badge. Then silence. Then Elise smiled again. Thanks, Sarah. We're all set. 10:08 a.m., access revoked. 10 minutes later, Sarah's email logged out. Her badge failed at the security gate. Her company phone disconnected. And by 11:00 a.m., she received a couriered letter termination for violation of digital policy standards. 11:12 a.m. Her drive was ready, but Sarah had already copied the files. A mirror of the clause history. Metadata of the original shell payment. Email trails showing internal legal routing through Brightreach. She'd never sent it to anyone. Until now. Present day. Jason drives through the rain. After learning her apartment was broken into, Jason sat behind the wheel of his black SUV trying to make sense of it all. Why now? Why me? He realized he was the last signature needed. Once he signed the merger, the clause would activate on any internal conflict. Brightreach would step in, control would transfer. Sarah had warned him just in time. 10:14 a.m. Jason meets with Greg. Jason entered the CFO's office and dropped the flash drive onto the desk. This proves it. Clause 47B wasn't a legal flaw, it was engineered. Greg leaned in, eyes scanning the audit logs. "You're going to try to stop this, aren't you?" Jason nodded. "If I don't, Sarah wasn't just fired. She was silenced." Every contract has a shadow. Every company a back door. Brightreach Holdings wasn't on any chart. It had no office, no staff, and yet it was about to own everything. 6:45 a.m. Asandia Capital, parking level. B. Jason parked in the executive garage under the building and paused before heading upstairs. He held the flash drive Sarah gave him, still unopened, still full of risk. He slipped it into his inner jacket pocket and headed for the archive vault. Not the public one. The founder's only records room buried 3 floors below legal. 7:08 a.m. Sub-level archive vault. Authorized access only. With Greg Bowen's CFO override. Jason entered the dim-lit vault lined with bound minutes, shareholder disclosures, and internal board memos. He searched manually, no servers, no indexing. Section Holdings, 2014-2019. After 30 minutes, he found it: Brightreach Holdings, LLC, registered 2016, owned by Asandia Internal Asset Management Trust, designated role, contingency continuity entity. Signatories: Elise Hartman, Charles M. Leland, former CEO. Operational authority, full upon trigger event. Clause 47B. Jason's breath caught. Elise didn't just approve Brightreach, she created it. 8:20 a.m. Jason confronts Elise lightly. Back on the executive floor, Jason caught Elise by the espresso bar. Out of curiosity, he said what would happen if Clause 47B was invoked after the merger. Elise didn't blink. That's unlikely, but it's a standard fallback. And Brightreach Holdings. She stirred her coffee slowly. A legal shell, Jason. Nothing more. She smiled. "You're overthinking this." But her tone had changed. Just slightly. Like a chess player feigning confidence after being cornered. 9:03 a.m. The flash drive revealed. Back in his office, Jason finally opened Sarah's drive on an isolated terminal. Inside, PDF screenshots of internal chat logs, a memo titled Strategic Transition Plan, Phase 2, a spreadsheet mapping post-merger power shift, and a voice note. If Clause 47B activates, Brightreach assumes control. Helix executives will be legally bound to follow its directives. Asandia will pivot into a privatized data governance enterprise controlled by a closed trust board with zero public accountability. Jason whispered, "This isn't a merger. It's a hijack." 10:12 a.m. Helix Dynamics offsite meeting. Jason called Victor Reed, Helix's CFO. "Vic, I need to talk. Privately. Not on your corporate line." They arranged to meet after hours. Jason knew if Helix saw this clause, they'd pull out immediately. That's why Elise had buried it. 11:01 a.m. Internal system lockout. Jason's access to the merger contract system abruptly froze. An alert popped up. Permission denied, user access, revoked pending review. He stared at the screen, then pulled out his personal laptop and burner hotspot. She's making her move. 12:15 p.m. Greg confirms the takeover plan. Greg stormed into Jason's office sweating. "She's presenting an alternate signing authority to the board. Says you're compromised by stress and not fit to represent Asandia." Jason leaned back, stunned. "She's executing the plan early, and she has board support. 4 signatures already. We're out of time. They didn't fire him. They erased him, locked out, isolated, discredited. Jason Whitaker had the truth, but the system he helped build was now being used against him. 7:12 a.m., Ascendia HQ, 51st floor. Jason arrived early. His keycard no longer opened the executive conference wing. He tried his email. Locked. Phone. No signal. Internal dashboard account under compliance review. Contact IT. Then the call came from Greg. You need to leave the building. Now. 7:25 a.m. Stairwell floor. 47. Jason descended 4 flights on foot, holding only his phone flash drive and burner hotspot. He wasn't paranoid. He was targeted. Greg called again. Elise circulated an internal alert. She's accusing you of exfiltrating financial records. They've launched an internal investigation. Jason, how long until she brings it public? Greg, they're prepping a press release. 8:01 a.m., the Safe House office. Jason moved into a small shared co-working space under a fake name. It was dusty, abandoned, perfect. He opened his personal laptop isolated from Ascendia systems. He emailed Miles Chang. I need to verify the voice file on Sarah's flash drive. Also get me a secure line to Helix CFO Victor Reed. Encrypted. Miles responded immediately. Already one step ahead. Sending you a burner VoIP. 8:42 a.m. Voice print. Match Miles's analysis came through voice on strategy memo. 98.2%. Match Elise Hartman timestamp. 3 weeks before Helix signing deadline. Recorded during internal ops call. Not meant for records. Jason exhaled slowly. He had her voice. He had her claws. Now he just needed the right audience. 9:18 a.m. The disappearance of Sarah Quinn. Jason called Sarah's number again. Still dead. He tried the backup contact she once used. It rang twice. Then a whisper. You shouldn't be calling me. It was her. They broke into my place. I'm not safe. But I'm still watching. Jason whispered, I'm going to drop everything. I need your go-ahead. Do it, she said. Just don't say my name. 10:03 a.m. The fake memo. Jason received a tip from Greg. Elise had drafted a memo to the board, claiming Jason attempted to blackmail her. Attached a fake email with fabricated timestamps, all designed to paint him as an unstable saboteur. Greg texted, "This is war, and she's rewriting the battlefield." 11:11 a.m. The final recording. Jason sat in silence. He opened a new file and began recording. My name is Jason Whitaker. I served as Chief Operating Officer of Ascendia Capital. What I'm about to share will explain how a legal shell company buried in fine print was engineered to seize control of a $4.7 billion merger. He read Clause 47B aloud. He played Elise's voice. He held up Sarah's printouts. This is no longer about money. It's about power without accountability. 12:00 p.m. The message is sent. He encrypted the recording and sent it to Victor Reed at Helix, 3 financial journalists, 1 ethics contact at the SEC, Sarah via encrypted relay subject line, Clause 47B, full disclosure. 12:08 p.m. Ascendia's press alert. Ascendia released a public statement. Jason Whitaker has been placed on indefinite leave, pending internal review for unauthorized data access. We thank him for his service and decline to comment further. But it was too late. Within 20 minutes, Jason's voice was trending online. It wasn't just a merger, it was a bait and switch. The names on the contract were public, but the real power hid behind Brightreach, and her name was finally about to surface. 6:55 a.m., Helix HQ, private Zoom call. Victor Reed, CFO of Helix Dynamics, looked exhausted. He stared at Jason through the encrypted video call. Tell me this is a bluff. Jason replied calmly. Clause 47B is real. It hands control to Brightreach Holdings under almost any dispute condition. And Brightreach is owned by Elise Hartman. Victor froze. You have proof. Jason held up a document from the archive vault, signed by your legal team before you even saw the appendix. 7:20 a.m. Miles traces. Brightreach's web. Miles Cheng sent a real-time trace map. Brightreach Holdings was registered under a web of shell companies. Its only listed officer a private trust fund in Belize. That trust paid legal retainer fees directly to Elise Hartman's consulting firm, H&R Strategy Partners pre-Ascendia. She built the vehicle before the deal existed, Miles said. Jason whispered. She planned the hijack before there was even a ship. 8:10 a.m. Jason breaks into the off-site data room. Using his legacy COO badge and Greg's backup access code, Jason entered the off-site server room in Jersey City. He found the internal compliance folder Elise forgot to purge. Inside, meeting notes labeled Continuity Transfer Briefing, strategy deck titled Post-Handover Governance Scenarios, a line from Slide 7 Public-Facing Merger Masks, Private Data Restructuring via Brightreach Handoff. Jason snapped a photo. 8:45 a.m. Elise confronts the board. Elise met with Ascendia's board of directors. She spun her version. Jason compromised the merger with false allegations. He leaked confidential materials and attempted to blackmail legal leadership. Clause 47B is standard language. He distorted its purpose. But one board member, Andrea Kane, interrupted. Then why does the backup entity listed in 47B lead to your own trust account? Elise's face dropped. 9:30 a.m. Sarah speaks. Sarah, through a secure journalist channel, gave a written statement. I was fired for pointing out a clause, not for misconduct. I was silenced because I found the real buyer behind the Helix deal, and it wasn't Helix. Her statement was posted anonymously under the hashtag Clause 47B. Within 45 minutes, it was trending on financial Twitter and picked up by two major news outlets. 10:12 a.m. SEC opens case. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission acknowledged in a press briefing, "We are reviewing whistleblower documentation provided regarding potential merger manipulation and undisclosed controlling interests." 11:03 a.m. Elise cornered. An emergency board session was called, this time without Elise present. The result: Elise was placed on administrative leave. Her pending override of Jason's authority revoked. Brightreach-related clauses in the Helix contract suspended pending legal review. Jason received a one-line message from Greg. The dam just broke. One file, one clause, one anonymous voice. That's all it took to turn a corporate takeover into a full-blown scandal. The truth was out now, and it wasn't going back in. 6:30 a.m. National Financial News Network, NFNN. The morning headline flashed across every finance screen in America. Whistleblower reveals hidden takeover clause in $4.7 billion merger. Clause 47B, Brightreach leak. A short clip played of Jason's voice taken from the leaked recording. This clause was engineered to bypass corporate governance, to give full control to a company the board didn't know existed. 7:05 a.m. Jason and Greg watch from the Foundation's war room. In a secure satellite office, Jason and Greg sat before 3 screens tracking news, legal updates, and stock performance. Ascendia Capital stock dropped 12% by 7:00 a.m. Helix Dynamics paused trading at market open. Elise Hartman's legal team issued a blanket no comment. Greg turned to Jason. The market believes you. Jason, good. Because the lawyers won't. 8:11 a.m. Anonymous upload. Hits the dark web. An encrypted data dump surfaced on a whistleblower archive forum, titled Operation Brightreach. It included full contract versions with Clause 47B, highlighted, metadata showing edits from Elise's IP address, redacted memos suggesting foreign shell transfers, internal chat transcripts between Elise and her legal assistant. 8:42 a.m., Helix Board releases a statement. Helix Dynamics was not informed of the full legal implications of Clause 47B. We are reviewing our legal exposure. We have paused all signing authority with Ascendia pending investigation. Translation: they were out. 9:00 a.m. Sarah Quinn logs. On from a borrowed laptop and a library Wi-Fi signal, Sarah Quinn created a new Twitter account under her real name. She posted, "My name is Sarah Quinn. I was fired for asking one question. Why does this clause exist? They called it internal misalignment. I call it fraud." Attached was a screenshot of the internal audit log, time-stamped 48 hours before her termination. It went viral in 30 minutes. 10:10 a.m. Elise breaks. Silence from her legal team. Ms. Hartman categorically denies wrongdoing. The clause in question was legal risk mitigation language reviewed by compliance. No intent of subversion occurred. Jason laughed when he saw it. They always say it wasn't the match, just the gasoline. 10:30 a.m. Press conference outside Ascendia, HQ. A crowd had gathered. Dozens of reporters, cameras, protesters holding signs. Who's really in control? Clause 47B integrity. Interest. Jason didn't attend, but Sarah Quinn did. Wearing no makeup, holding a single sheet of paper, she stepped to the mic. "I was told to stay quiet. I was told my job was gone, but I had a voice. And it turns out, that was all I ever needed." The crowd erupted. 11:00 a.m. SEC files formal investigation. A federal investigation was announced into misrepresentation of merger terms, failure to disclose controlling entities, retaliatory termination of whistleblowers. Elise was subpoenaed. Ascendia's board was formally requested to testify. A billion-dollar merger unraveled. A whistleblower vindicated. A shadow company exposed. And for Ascendia Capital, the reckoning had just begun. 6:45 a.m. Ascendia boardroom, emergency session. The remaining board members sat in silence, eyes on the headline ticker flashing across the conference screen. SEC launches, fraud probe into Ascendia, Helix merger, whistleblower documents, confirm shell ownership. Elise Hartman's seat was empty. Chairman Alan Trask slammed his fist on the table. "This company is radioactive. The deal is dead." 7:30 a.m. Helix pulls out. Officially, Helix Dynamics filed a formal contract withdrawal. Ascendia failed to disclose material controlling interest language. We are terminating all merger-related obligations effective immediately. Jason watched the live stream from the war room. No smile, just quiet relief. "It's over," Greg said. Jason shook his head. "No. Now it begins." 8:10 a.m. Elise Hartman. Placed under federal investigation. Federal agents arrived at her Manhattan condo. Her attorney issued a single statement. "We will cooperate fully with investigators and are confident Ms. Hartman acted within the scope of her legal obligations." She declined to answer questions. The agents took her laptop hard drives and several financial documents. 9:03 a.m. Ascendia stock plummets. Ascendia Capital's shares fell 34% before the market froze trading. Investors called emergency meetings. Shareholder lawsuits began circulating within hours. 9:30 a.m. Sarah Quinn offered her job back. Ascendia's new interim board chair contacted Sarah Quinn with a formal offer. We'd like to reinstate your role and formally apologize. She declined. Instead, she accepted a contract as Special Ethics Advisor to the Federal Accountability Council. 10:00 a.m. Jason faces the press. Jason stood outside the Ascendia Tower, cameras flashing. He read from a handwritten note: "I believed in a system that rewarded silence, but it only protects the people who build the traps. I didn't stop the lie, but I refused to sign it." Then he handed the microphone to a journalist and walked away. 11:15 a.m. SEC files charges. Elise Hartman charged with securities fraud, obstruction of an investigation, and whistleblower retaliation. Ascendia Capital placed under federal oversight for 180 days. Bright Reach Holdings frozen assets pending full audit. 1:45 p.m. Private goodbye. In the now abandoned 51st floor executive office, Jason packed up his few remaining things. One photograph, one folder, one flash drive. He left a note for the next CEO. "If you ever see a clause you don't understand, don't sign it." The clause is gone. The merger is dead. But the damage remains. This isn't about rebuilding Ascendia. It's about writing a future where another Sarah Quinn never has to whisper the truth again. 6:30 a.m. 1 month later, Capitol Hill. Jason Whitaker sat before the House Subcommittee on Financial Ethics, his hands folded on the table, a silver pen beside him. Across from him sat 6 congressional representatives. Behind him, cameras. He'd been called not as a defendant, but as a witness. His statement, Clause 47B, should never have existed. It wasn't oversight. It was strategy. Buried language, misused trust, and a system designed to reward those who silence dissent. Sarah Quinn was fired for doing her job. This hearing, this is her voice echoing through us. 9:00 a.m. Clause Watch Initiative announced. Thanks to Sarah and Jason's case, the SEC launched Clause Watch, a national program to flag buried control language in corporate contracts. Jason was asked to serve on its advisory board. He declined one condition: Sarah leads it. Not me. 10:45 a.m. Sarah reviews a new contract. In a modest D.C. office, Sarah Quinn sat at a long conference table beside a junior analyst. She reviewed a 200-page vendor agreement for a government agency. Page 182, Clause 51A. She raised an eyebrow. "Here," she said, circling the paragraph. "They're trying again." The analyst blinked. "How did you spot that?" Sarah smiled gently. "Because I've seen what it looks like when the fine print is meant to hide something big." 12:00 p.m. Ascendia Ethics Task Force formed. Ascendia, now under new leadership, formed its first-ever internal whistleblower protection team. The name Quinn Directive, built to ensure silence, is never the safest option. 3:30 p.m. Jason's final act. Jason declined offers to return to the board. He declined TV interviews, book deals, and 6-figure consulting offers. Instead, he joined a civic transparency nonprofit. One desk, no title. When asked why, he replied, "Because the only contract I'm interested in now is the one where people tell the truth and someone listens." 5:42 p.m. A new email. Somewhere in a mid-tier accounting firm in Atlanta, a young staffer flagged a clause buried in a vendor services contract. She hesitated, then forwarded it to Clause Watch. The subject line: "Check this line in the contract." They tried to hide it in the fine print. But the truth was never small, because all it takes is one person reading the line no one else did to stop a lie from becoming law.